Let's get the bad news out of the way. Yes, Trump's tariffs will hurt. At 50% import duty plus penalty on many Indian goods, it's one of the highest and will hurt India's GDP, growth, and thousands of jobs. It could also have a trickle-down effect on spending when job losses accumulate. The government for the time being is focused on boosting domestic growth, aiming to cut down tax and simplify GST slabs, which it hopes will spur citizens to spend more and thus balance out the drop in export revenue. The RBI has declared it will monitor the situation and will jump in with interest rate cuts if needed, while a policy prop-up of seriously affected sectors like textiles, for example, is very much on the table. But having said that, let's take a barely looked at side at the present American notification. Maybe, just maybe, things aren't as bad as it may actually seem. Really? Well, for all the once dreamy proclamations in better times of India-US relations, those Ab Ki Baar and Howdy Modi days of hitting $500 billion in trade by the end of this decade, after all that, the actual exports from India to the US presently is only $86 billion. Not a big figure, but for good or for worse, India's massive domestic market has always meant that businesses and trade have always focused more on the local market rather than selling goods abroad, which they face stricter quality checks with. That meant our exports have not been big, particularly on the goods and merchandise side compared to services like IT. But this 86 billion itself, along with our much lesser imports from the US, the real reason why the US president went on the tariff tirade in the first place, together does make the US India's biggest trading partner, now for the 4th year in a row. But look at the bright side. The 50% tariff is set to affect only about half of India's goods exports to the US. Textiles, gems and jewelry will be one of the worst affected. But get this, electronics aren't. Saving American company Apple's great dilemma. According to estimates, nearly 2.3 crore iPhones were exported from India to the US market in just the first half of this year. Semiconductors too are exempted. Of course, Trump's tariffs have not yet touched two very crucial areas: pharmaceutical drugs as well as the services sector. Both are areas where India aces, be it the fact that 35% of generic drugs in the US market comes from India. Services too have been left out of the tariff terror so far, and just as well because India is a powerhouse in this area with its big presence in IT services, BPO, communications and travel services. Sure, the US president has commented more than once that he wouldn't desist slapping sky-high tariffs on pharma imports, but that is a bullet even he is unlikely to bite, considering that it will eventually mean prices of ordinary medicines will shoot up for US citizens. The government, meanwhile, is looking at alternatives, including seeing if Indian products can replace the vacuum in Russian consumer space left by Western boycott over the Ukraine war, as well as sewing up new trade deals. The one with the European Union is in advanced stages with the next round scheduled for next month, as well as finding alternate markets. And never forget, in the world of diplomacy, negotiations are forever going on. So who knows, a trade rapprochement with the Yankees could still materialize once the dust settles, the muscle flexing and chest thumping is done, and reality sets in. Don't forget, just last night, both India and the US did conduct the 2+2 intersessional dialogues. And though the focus was on strategic affairs, the topics covered included trade and investment. So never say never again.